Oh, I'm sorry.
So, you three share this microphone.
Okay.
Pass it back and forth. If you need to mute it, you just push that down to off. And when you turn it back on, it takes a few seconds for it to. It's going.
You guys have done a good job. This has been a really nice conference.
Thank you. Walter, the gentleman right over there, he's literally done all of the work.
Very good job.
I really appreciate it. We are feeling like it's gone really well.
Yes, we have been very displeased with the whole thing.
Yeah, things have gone pretty smoothly.
And given everything else that you're facing, it's impressive.
Well, you know, one of the things that we've learned a lot, I've been in IT at K-State now for 19 years. And every time we have a problem or we go to some major conference, or we always come back, you know what, we're not doing as bad as we say we are.
Yeah.
We're doing all right. We got plenty of things to do, but this fire is a good example. You know, in hindsight, we're doing okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as disastrous as it could have been by a long shot. We should feel pretty good.
Yeah, you should. You guys are great.
We got to recognize that because it's easy to get caught up in the problems.
Sure. Absolutely. Get everything.
Yeah, we don't.
Crazy
IT's not very good at praising itself. You know, we were successful.
Yeah.
You know,
You're right.
we find the small bugs and say, look, we were successful. There's this thing still happening here.
Yeah. You're right. We aren't good at that.
There's your flex question. Ran out of questions.
Yeah. 10:15, is that what time? Or 11:15,
Yep.
okay.
Go ahead and pick it up. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Finkeldye. I'm from Kansas State University, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2018 Czech CIO Panel. And I have the pleasure of introducing Angela Neria from Pittsburgh State University. And without further ado, let me turn it over to Angela.
Thank you, guys. I'm really sorry that I'm the one moderating this. It should be Gary Pratt, but he is back at Manhattan working on their data center recovery right now. As many of you know, they had a fire in their main library and their data centers in the basement of that. So with that, has this not been an awesome conference? And they had all that going on? Awesome. Very impressive team for sure to pull all of this off with that going on back at Manhattan. So K-State, thank you. It's been a great conference. So my name is Angela. I'm the CIO at Pitt State, and we have a CIO panel. We've done this several years on and off at the Czech conference at the end of the last day. And we've got several people here today to visit with you and to answer some basic questions, which are in here, but hopefully we'll have a little time left that if you all have a question, we can answer it. I'm going to have each one of these individuals introduce themselves because the names that are in this aren't going to match who's here because some things have changed. So, and that's okay, because we'll go with it because we're IT people and that's what we do. So I'm going to have Eric start down at the end. Eric, if you just talk a little bit about, tell me your name, your title, where you're from, and what you do.
So I'm Eric Freeze. I'm the Deputy CIO at the University of Kansas. I'm filling in for Mike Rounds, who's our interim CIO. He unfortunately couldn't make it. His son's graduating from West Point and getting commissioned, and he's doing the commissioning. So I guess that's a reasonable excuse for not being here. But so my role, I'm the Deputy CIO at KU. I oversee all things IT infrastructure, and been at the university for about 8 years now, in this role for about 4. Does that cover it?
That's perfect.
And I'm Mark Griffin. I'm with Fort Hays State University. Might be able to tell by the shirt, and I am actually in your program. So I'm not filling in for anybody. I am the actual CIO. I've been, though I am in your program, I have only been in this job for about a year now. So I'm new to I consider myself still new to the CIO role. But I have been with Fort Hays State almost 30 years now. So I'm pretty familiar with our campus and then the inner workings of what's going on. So
I'm Tony Flack, and I'm the CIO at Wichita State University, and I've been with Wichita State in this position for 3 years now.
Thanks, Tony. You guys have a mic over here.
Oh. Hi, I'm Rob Caffey. I'm at Kansas State University. I have been there for about 20 years in several different capacities, including as a director of one of our IT units. About 2 years ago, I took on the role of interim CIO and was in that position for about a year and a half. And about 6-7 months ago, we hired Gary Pratt as our permanent CIO at K-State. Unfortunately, he can't be here today because of the issues that we have going on with our data center and trying to dry things out. But I'm happy to be here and try to fill those shoes.
I'm Ryan Kurtenbaugh. I'm the Director of Information Security at Emporia State University. I've been here for a little over 4 years now. I'm fairly new to the university. I came from the private sector, so I've learned quite a bit over those 4 years. I'm filling in for Corey Faldine, who unfortunately fell ill and was unable to attend today.
Okay, thanks, Phyllis. I'm Angela Neary. I'm the CIO at Pitt State. I've been there 8 years, just had my 8-year anniversary. Before that, I was the CIO at Joplin, Missouri at the school system for 11 years. And I wasn't there when the tornado hit. I had just left a year before, but Pitt State went back over there and helped, so I have lots of experience with disaster recovery, so I feel for you guys. Okay, so we're going to start out. If you have this booklet, you'll see that some of the questions that we're going to kind of focus on that Gary laid out for us, but basically this whole thing is about what keeps us awake at night. What keeps IT leadership awake at night is kind of what the whole premise is focused on. So let's start on this end and just quickly, I know we won't get everyone to answer every question, but this question would probably be a good one for everyone to take a shot at. What keeps you awake at night, Eric?
So I think for me, obviously I'm infrastructure, so it's aged infrastructure budgets, not being able to replace stuff on a life cycle, but more than that, it's retaining qualified and quality staff. I mean, the state that we're in with the budgets and, especially in Lawrence, where we're so close to Kansas City and people can drive half an hour and double their salary. I mean, it's, keeping those people interested and engaged and, building a career path so they can grow in the organization. So I think keeping qualified staff is probably what keeps me up at night.
Mark?
I'll mention a couple things. The big thing that really keeps me up at night is the exact same thing that K-State's going through right now, and that's potential disasters. And this time of year is particularly scary for us, tornado season. There's always lots of tornadoes in western Kansas. And since I've been there in the last 30 years, there really hasn't been any close calls, knock on wood, but it's always a concern, and doesn't have to be a tornado, obviously. But anyway, just disaster recovery, you plan for it best you can, but if you ever have to go through it, I just can't imagine the nightmares. The other thing, I don't know if I'd say it keeps me up at night, but one thing that's always on my mind is what can I do better to build our team? How can I bring us closer together? How can I reward those folks that really are doing an outstanding job? And we have a lot of those people. And we're always worried about not only getting good help, but retaining them. And I think it's my job to make them really enjoy the work environment, enjoy being where they're at, and working well as a team. So that's a big concern of mine.
I'd say one of my biggest concerns is security and compliance and possibly having a data breach. We have HIPAA, FERPA, GLIBA, PCI, ITAR, DFARS, GDPR, Clarity Act, Title 369, EHS, harassment training. It's just keeping track of what trainings people have to take, making sure they do it, having enforcement, and still with all that, and the LPA, legislative post audit, and CLA audits, things that all of you are probably familiar with in Kansas. Most of those are federal, so they apply anywhere. Some of them are state only. It just seems like there's universities are soft targets because we have such a mission to try and provide data and information to people, as opposed to in the private sector where it's, very proprietary stuff. We have DoD contracts, so you name it. It's just trying to make sure that we have a handle on, least privilege, and only those who need to have access, and that if there were a breach, we could contain it or publicize, know what needs to be done. And that's just changing every day. I think GDPR goes into effect tomorrow, if I recall. So it's always something.
Yep, thank you. This side of the room.
Passing
You want me to? Okay, I was going to come back to me, but I'll say that there's probably two things that probably keep me most worried, and that is also, I'll echo what Eric said, recruiting and retaining folks. And then a little piece of what Mark said also is making sure, and I guess it's part of retaining, is making sure people are happy. We can't do that with salaries right now. It's not an option. So how do we do that? How do we keep people here and keep morale high? So that's important. And then secondly, we have some aged infrastructure, not much, but we do have some, and it's you just never know. When early enrollment comes around, these guys are laughing because they know. When early enrollment comes around and it's getting pounded on, I worry. Those are the things. It doesn't keep me awake every night, but it certainly keeps me awake during those times of the year.
Well, most recently, I actually stayed awake most of the night on Tuesday night. And I was thinking to myself, what if our big honking V block that runs all of our VMs for all of our services won't start again? And at this point, we're still waiting to find out if that's the case, and hopeful that it's not. So as other people had mentioned, sort of disaster recovery, resilience against those kind of things, that certainly keeps me up. All of the things that have mentioned, staff retention, compliance, security, clearly all of those things, I think, keep all of us up at different times. Maybe a meta issue that I think about an awful lot and does keep me up from time to time is thinking about the broader issue of staying relevant. How does central IT stay relevant in a vastly changing environment? How do we stay agile enough to be able to do the things that are necessary and get things done? I use the example of we've been trying to get our authentication services moved to the cloud for a year now, and we successfully did it in the last 24 hours because we absolutely had no other choice. So there's got to be a way that we can move almost that agilely and nimbly to get things done without a crisis, right? That's how we get it figured out. A lot of staff retention is clearly an issue. We also have a problem, and I may be going out on a limb here. Hopefully none of these people are in this room because these are the people that don't usually come to things like this and avail themselves of these opportunities. But everybody has people that get entrenched on staff and they don't stay up to date. They don't learn new things, and they don't participate, and they just try to hunker down. So staff retention is a problem in multiple ways, but it all comes back to being agile and being able to have a workforce that's ready to take on the things that are needed.
Being the security guy in the room, this is where I would normally mention security, but I think we pretty well covered that. One of the big things that I see that has to do more with retention and stuff is the balance between work life and home life. We're spread pretty thin at ESU. We have a lot of people that there's things that we have single points of failure if we lose one person. So trying to find that balance, get cross training, but make sure that when there are episodes, we had a recent issue where we did an upgrade that took all night about a week ago. So how do you balance getting those people so they do get the rest so they can come back Monday? Because there is no way we can not have them there to help just in case the campus finds more issues.
Very good one. Life-work balance and IT is tough stuff. Very good point, especially with thin staff, which most of us have. So this is how I'm hoping this will work. I'll go through some of the questions that Gary's lined out for us, and I'll ask for someone on this side of the room to at least one response, and at least one response from this side of the room. And I'm guessing we'll go, we might chase some rabbits here, and that's okay. So here's the first one that he has listed. So why is being an IT leader on campus the best and the worst job at the same time? You could say the best and the hardest job, if you want to.
So, I think because IT is so ingrained in everything, we get to get involved in most everything that's going on campus. So that's, the best and the worst, because when things don't work, we're the ones that get the fingers pointed at us and the ones that are having to resolve the issues when the lights don't turn on. Yeah. So to say.
The best and the worst all wrapped up into one. Anything from this side of the table? Anything different from the side of the room?
Well, I would say it's how vast the different technologies a university uses. One school may like using this piece of software, the next one likes this piece of software. So now you're covering way more and you don't have any real input into, hey, this does the same thing. So trying to cover everything is
that
one of the biggest
duplication
ones.
of effort. Yeah, good. What about your biggest challenges? We know yours.
The biggest acute challenge, yes. But one of the great things about being a IT leader, CIO in particular, is things change all the time. There's constantly something new to worry about. I think I have kind of undiagnosed ADD anyway, and so it works great for me. I'm constantly onto something else, something new to be focused on or interested in or learn about. I love learning about new things. And responding to a crisis and the adrenaline that comes from doing that, that's what makes it the best job. The worst part is that to be effective at it, we got to somehow get out of constantly firefighting, get out of constant mode of being reactionary and be proactive and drive a strategic move toward being a more agile, nimble institution.
You've said that several times, and I think you're so
heading in the
right direction. Being agile and nimble is so critical. Biggest challenges over here on this side of the room. As an IT leader, what do you see as some of the biggest?
I think some of the biggest is trying to determine what the biggest priorities are, because we all have 50 things that are all coming at us at once. And in fact, I have one staff member that I meet with about once a month, and we go over his priorities, and I know him by himself probably has 40 different projects, and 10 of them are high priority. He wants to know, which ones do I do for first? And it's really a hard juggling act, because the one that maybe you put as number 10 instead of number 1, that's going to be the first person to call and complain. And so it's really a hard juggling act, and determining those priorities for the entire department can be really difficult.
And campus. Others have anything similar to that they're facing? Yeah, we do too at Pittsburgh State. In fact, Jeff's smiling because we're getting ready to move to a new model with project management. Each of our division heads at the university tell us what IT project that they want us to work on. And historically, we've been able to do that. We've had the bandwidth, the human bandwidth to do that. We don't anymore. So our new model is each of those division heads meet with us every quarter, and they decide together using a rubric, and that's the president and all the vice presidents. They decide together what they want IT to work on. There's some things that must be worked on, obviously, to keep infrastructure up and those kinds of things. But there's a lot of projects. People are buying, even though there's not any money, they keep buying third-party softwares and all kinds of stuff, which, whatever. I mean, it probably lends itself to efficiencies as they're losing folks and people are retiring and they're not able to fill those vacancies. So we get it, but it means more work for IT. And so that's a new model at Pitt State to try and handle those things. And we'll let you know a year from now how that goes. President Scott might be back here next year with us telling you how it went. but it is a challenge. And I think it's a challenge everywhere. It doesn't matter how big your staff is. It's hard because everybody wants a piece of IT for something. So next question. This is a good one. How should aspiring CIOs or IT leaders prepare for such a position?
First, change your aspirations, probably.
Anybody over here want to share?
I'll say a little bit. This is not necessarily about preparing your career per se, but if anybody wants to see me after, I'd be happy. I wrote down some notes about things that I did in my job search. I was mostly in the private sector, but at a university before this in an IT director position. There are some surveys, if you're not aware of, that you can see that are free or inexpensive. There's an organization called CHECS, CHECS.org. And this is a former CIO of a university who's retired. He did his doctoral dissertation on this, and every year he does a survey. It's, voluntary, but for all CIOs in higher ed, and he compiles the information about, what's the average age, what's the gender, what is their education, what is their discipline of education, how long have they served in a higher ed, et cetera, all kinds of stuff. There's actually 2 of those. There's another one also called Leadership Board for CIO, and that is definitely a freebie that you can download. It's like a PowerPoint presentation of the results of these surveys. Job sites, if you're looking again for this sort of position, higheredjobs.com, educause.edu, Indeed, obviously websites of universities. There are certain headhunters, if you're familiar with, some high ed boutique that are either high ed or just SLED in general, like governmental type positions and nonprofits. A few that I can think of: Witt, Kiefer, Korn Ferry, Isaacson Miller, Brill Newman, Heidrich and Struggles. So if you're looking for a position like this in higher ed, those are recruiting organizations that would post positions that they have. You could find them also at those other websites. And lastly, there's, unlike in the private sector, you can look up very specific information on universities. They typically have published the names and titles of people, org charts, strategic objectives and projects. You can go to like Sperling and look for cost of living things. You can look at the websites of universities and their student newspaper publications and Wikipedia and stuff and look up all their profile. iPeds also, if you're familiar with that, has profiles of how many instructors, how many students, what types of programs do they offer. And again, because of open records laws, at least most public universities, you can go to either a state website or maybe a local newspaper website. You can find salaries for different titles of functions in the university. So there's a lot of ways, again, unlike in the private sector, whereby you can find out a lot of advanced information about a prospective employer that's of interest to you. Sorry for the long answer.
No, that's good. That's good information. Anybody else have advice for those going into IT leadership?
Well, those who are going into leadership, we all have strong technical skills. Focus on your soft skills. That seems to get missed a lot. How you deal with people, how different people react, and how you can help convince them of what they really want versus what they're telling you they want. And then learn how to step back and see a more overarching view of things that, yeah, this project is great, you got to set on track, but how does it affect other things on campus?
Good suggestions. I think those are all really clear. I think one of the things that I've noticed is I work with some prospective leadership folks through Educause, and most people are worried about their technical skills. And do I have enough technical skills? Are they broad enough? And I don't think that's the answer. I think assembling a team and leading that team that can do those things for you is critical, and being a leader. But I think you're exactly right. Communication with your team, building, engaging your team, and and also getting to a point where your team meets milestones and goals, but obviously working with your clients is so critical, and helping them to understand very complex things. It's some people don't want to hear. They don't want to hear. They just want it done. So it's hard. We use a lot of visuals. I mean, I'm going to be, that sounds kindergartenish, but we do it. We lay a lot of stuff out visually for our clients to help them understand issues or why we can't do something, or the reason it's so complex to do this, and this is why it's taking so long. So I think you're right. Soft skills are key. Do you have anything?
Well, it may be a segue into the next one. Talking about what kind of skills or a skill that's needed by a CIO. So, like I said, about 2 years ago, I applied for the interim CIO position at K-State, and I'd been there for many years in different capacities. And the good thing was I knew everybody there. The bad thing was that I knew everybody there, right? So it kind of cuts both ways. It's a very interesting process being an internal candidate. I don't suggest you do that if you have a chance, but anyway, it's an interesting process to go through. One of the some best pieces of advice I got from another vice president of another area at K-State, who was really friendly to me, a mentor to me through the process when I first applied for it. They said, you need to be cool under fire. And that can be in a crisis situation. You need to think carefully about what you do and take a Hippocratic approach, do no harm. I think it also means that you're going to get crazy political stuff that you didn't even think about. Here you spend your whole career training on being an alpha technician type geek, and then you're dealing with things that don't have anything to do with technology whatsoever and are political in nature, and they come out of left field, and you think you understand somebody's motivation and you don't. You're dealing with politics at a different level and all of this, and there's being cool under fire, being able to sort of take it in stride, not react immediately, carefully consider what you want to do, bring your resources to bear on a problem carefully is a great skill to have. I still am working on that, but it was a great piece of advice, and I think anybody at that level is going to need to approach things that way.
That is great advice. Other comments about skills? Eric,
I would say one of the things that I would recommend is learning different ways to say no. or not saying no and saying yes but instead, because you're really going to turn off the people that will someday be your supervisor or your VPs or president. If you're telling them no, you're going to turn them off immediately. And so you've got to find a way to say, yes, we can do that, but here's the consequences, or and just be accepting and willing to take on the responsibility to take on whatever they want to throw at you. So
kind of jumping back to, I can't remember who said it earlier, but I think just being able to step away from the technical side and jump into the management side and understanding people and knowing when to trust people, how to build teams. Those are all, I think, very important skills to IT leadership. And, I always feel like we fail as a industry. I mean, I hate to put it on the whole industry, but we take highly technical people, and because we can't challenge anymore where they're at, we say, all right, you're going to be a manager now, but we don't set them up for success by giving them the training and the mentorship. So, and I think that's the other thing I'll jump back to, and I think Rob kind of mentioned it, is finding a mentor, finding someone that's willing to spend the time with you, whether they're an IT leader or whether they're a leader in another part of the organization. I'll pick the current interim CIO, Mike Grounds. I mean, prior to him becoming that, I mean, I had gone to him and formed a mentorship relationship with him and learned a lot of stuff from him about leadership, about management that wasn't IT related at all. And, fortunately he became our boss and got a lot more of that. But I think that's important. I mean, finding someone that you can grow and learn from it. I mean, you don't have to do it on your own all the time. So
very good advice. Okay. We talked about this a little bit earlier, attracting and retaining staff. What are some of you doing to both attract and retain staff at this very difficult time? And I don't remember where the stat came from. I know that I heard it at Canran Court, and I emailed you about this the other day. But at one point, it's been a couple years ago, there was a group out of the Kansas City area that spoke with us at Canran, and they told us at that point in time, and this has been 2-3 years ago, they had 5,000 more IT jobs in the Kansas City area than they had people to fill them. And I'm sure that has not gotten better. So, so we're all fighting this, even most of us are located in smaller cities than Kansas City. How do we attract them? How do we keep them? What are some methods that some of you are doing that you've seen that are successful?
I'd say we have several. I think all of us are in the same boat in that regard. Maybe we don't have as much competition as the KC area for IT folks. Obviously, IT is in demand in every industry. So no matter where you are, you're competing for resources with private sector organizations that typically have deeper pockets. So the things we can do in higher ed or public environment are certainly emphasize the benefits that we have, because I think we do have equal or superior in almost all areas. Things like better retirement, good medical benefits, lots of paid time off, sick leave, vacation leave, tuition assistance for both employees and also for dependents is a huge thing. So there's a lot of sort of built-in advantages, benefits-wise, that aren't direct salary compensation. And then also trying to make people feel appreciated and valued, as I think was talked in one of the earlier sessions about just thank yous and providing employees opportunity to be promoted, both literally and figuratively, not only with title and money, but also with choice assignments, prime, areas of interest to them personally that also have relevance to the strategic goals of the university. Training, coming to things like this, which costs very little, these kind of conferences, but giving people the opportunity to go to those and really acknowledging and rewarding them in non-financial ways, like the training, like conferences, like choice project assignments when the opportunity presents itself. So we have to look real hard in our field for non-financial compensation benefits and validation. So those are some of the things I look at.
Anybody else have some things that are working or that they're trying?
So one of the things, we have quite a few student employees that we try to groom and bring up. We've opened up to internships as well, not just to Emporia State, but to the technical school that is in Emporia. And what we're finding is it drives a lot of interest because they talk to their other classmates, the school talks to the students, and we find that more and more of them are applying local instead of trying to go to the Kansas City area and things like that, because they feel they have a better chance, and they realize that we're doing a lot of the same things that other big companies are as well.
Yeah, it's not a very good idea. Other comments? We're just starting to do something along those lines with an internship program, and so far so good. We'll see where it takes us, but again, grooming, and we do a lot of grooming our own staff as well to kind of, like you said, give them options for maybe projects or even positions that open up that we think might be hard to fill. We try and give folks that training and opportunity, a little latitude to do some new things. So it's not an easy thing right now. And I think too, culture and morale are huge. I mean, everybody in this room could probably leave higher ed and make more money somewhere else. But there's something that keeps us there. I do think it takes a certain kind of person to work in education, and most of us are intrinsically motivated. So morale and culture are important, and that can be hard when money's tight, but it's important to create those kinds of atmospheres, and you're never really there. We talk about that all the time in our leadership group, where you're never there. Your morale's never where you want it to be. Your culture's never where you want it to be. It's always changing. It's a journey, and I think keeping that in mind and not getting stagnant is really important. It's hard to do sometimes when you're stretched so many different directions.
Can I throw something else in?
Yes, please.
So you mentioned students, hiring students. We've had a good success with that over the year. I started out as a student. So I was just wondering, of all the people, all the higher ed IT people here, how many of you started as a student at your university? That's a lot of hands.
Yeah. Pretty good.
That's a lot of hands. So that's a great way is to try to grow people from inside.
Very good. Last question. What is your proudest achievement as an IT leader? And I don't know if we all want to say something here. We're all more than welcome to.
I'll just be pretty generic with it. I just think the amount of work that our teams do and accomplish on a daily basis is, I'm very proud of the fact that, with the little resources we have, we do so much. And tend to be pretty successful with it. And we do some really amazing things. So I think that's what I'm proudest of.
Very good.
Yeah, I'd say in the last year that I've been involved, one of the things I started tracking was just projects that we've actually completed in the last year, and individually. And if I had to go back and name them right now, I couldn't do it. I just can't, because there's so many. We have accomplished so much in this first year that I've been here. The number of projects, it is pages long, and I'm pretty proud of that, and certainly proud of my staff for it.
Well, I come from a very technical background myself, but I've done a lot of projects, or my folks have, and not me personally in most cases, but everywhere I've been in the private sector or in higher ed, I think my personal proudest achievement is really to leave a legacy of hiring good people and maintaining and retaining and motivating. And so when I move on from this job at some point, I retire or whatever, I hope and think that my greatest legacy will be that I hired a bunch of people that are great people, and in terms not only of their raw technical talent, but their fit with the organization, and that they stay there long beyond my tenure. So that's what I'm proud of.
Thanks, Tony.
Well, in IT, we have a tendency to not get rid of things as quick as we need to. And sometimes things go on forever and ever, and we don't get rid of a service until absolutely no one is using it. And when I took over in the interim CIO capacity, we were still running dial-up service, believe it or not. Not to offend any of you who may still be doing that. I don't know if it's, but one of my proudest achievements that I like to hold up is that I finally killed dial-up at K-State. We were able to get that service decommissioned. There were still 6 people using it, and I'm sure they're mad about it now, but we finally got that done. But in seriousness, I'll agree with Tony. I think for hiring people, I've hired a lot of people who have stepped up and become amazing leaders when they were needed to do that, and that's what an institution needs to do, right? We have to continue to foster the next round of leadership. We have to hire people and train them and prepare them so they don't need us anymore, right?
Okay. Good.
For me, it's going to be the strengthening of the security at ESU. The technical side was the easy part. Our security awareness program is really coming along and getting much better, and that's a cultural shift. So we already see it in the students. The students are taking more interest. They understand why certain things are put in place and what they can do to help with that. Now we're trying to get more of the faculty to get that same mindset. So we're getting it in pockets, but we're not quite there yet. But that's probably the proudest thing we got
And an
going.
important one. At Pitt State, I think my proudest at Pitt State is going from a department that was seen as an obstacle to a department that's seen as a partner. And that has a lot to do with hiring the right people and creating, a new culture and having leadership in that department really step up, and they have. So that's been a big deal for us and a happy thing for us. So now it's time to take questions from the audience. We have about 6 minutes to take questions from the audience. And I don't know if it would be best if I just ran this microphone or how you want to do that. If there are questions, go ahead and raise your hands if you might have a question.
Just a quick show of hands. How many of you saw the Mark Zuckerberg testimony before Congress? Did that remind you of anything? How do you guys cope with and deal with superiors and colleagues that fail to understand technology when you need to convince them that you need a piece of software, you need a vendor change, whatever that case may be?
It's finding their motivation. What motivates them? Are they business minded? Is it the dollars and the cents? Is it the return on investment? Because a lot of times, we as technical people want to sell as this, whiz bang feature that's going to solve all their problems. But, if it's not hitting the bottom line or helping them, show a return on investment, or sometimes just giving them something they can put a feather in their hat and champion up the hill, they may not go for it. So.
if you don't like being that person in between people that don't know about technology and people that do, don't become a CIO, because that's what your job is, right? I mean, you'll have to do an awful lot of that. Not fun, but.
I'm just going to echo one thing that we've done, I think it's working, and Jeff, you can probably attest to this because you're in a lot of meetings with the president and vice presidents, but we do a lot of visuals. Technology is hard to understand. It's complex stuff, and we really try and tone down our language meaningfully. I mean, we go into meetings with a meaningful mindset of whether we're dealing with faculty. We meet regularly with the deans, our leadership team does, as well as the chairs of every department. Sometimes those meetings are painful. I mean, we go in, we walk in the room and they're ready to beat us up over something. And that relationship over the years has changed because we go in with a mindset of, we're here to help, we're here to support. We've got to make sure that we use language that they understand, and we'll walk up to a whiteboard and start drawing stuff to help them. That's what our meetings have turned into. But at first, when we started doing that years ago, when I first came here, we were punching bags. It was hard. We were Mark Zuckerberg for sure.
Yes, one thing I would say is that it's really important to develop those relationships. You've got to develop a relationship with the other VPs and all of them, not just your boss and the president, so that you've kind of built at least a level of trust with them. They probably aren't going to understand everything, and you can draw the pictures and you can talk to your blue in the face. They are not going to understand everything, but you want them to trust you. And if they trust you, they're going to give you a little bit of leeway to make those hard choices and say, you know, this is the direction we need to go. It's going to cost X, and we need to move now. Or it may be a situation that you can explain that here's the cost. If we do it, we're going to be successful on this. If we don't do it, here's what's going to happen. And you just lay it out. And if they trust you, then they will believe and understand.
Hi, thanks. Sorry, I didn't know that was so loud. Hi, my question is relating to recruiting and retention. So it keeps you up at night. How are you effectively strategizing the way you communicate with your administration, your human capital services, or your HR leadership about this problem? And are you making headway?
Well, I know at ESU, our HR department has actually gotten involved at that. They're working on a new salary compensation plan that they just introduced here the past week. They had CBIZ come in and work out and start mapping out what their positions are, what they do, what they should be making, and things like that. So we're fortunate in that they kind of are helping us with that at the same time.
So I'll jump in. So we've been fortunate at the University of Kansas to have our interim boss be also the head of HR. So that's actually given us a lot of headway. And I mean, as recent as last week, I was meeting with them on, talking about how we could build a career path structure and align that with training and actually have it where we can not have to post a position and have someone get hired into it for a promotion. We can actually reclassify something. So, I'm excited. I mean, we're not there yet. It's conversations we're having, but it's positive conversations that I think will help us with recruitment and retention. But, fortunately for us, it was because we had, the right leader over IT that just happened to know the HR side as well. So
very good. Any other comments about attraction or retention? Okay. Oh, there's one more question. We could probably squeeze one more in. Can you say it?
My understanding was they were looking at, it was more a regional comparison than it was just strictly university industry. So that's, coming from the private sector, I absolutely know what you mean.
Okay. With that, I know that there's a few words that need to be spoken about lunch, maybe some directions. Someone wanted to give us some directions, so I'm going to hand the microphone over. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for everyone that filled in today very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the panel. We just have a few gift items for our panelists. Some of our panelists were speakers, so they may not be getting a gift item because I got one already. We want to make sure and thank them for coming and for being part of our panel and being part of CHEC. Okay, so lunch is located, if you're in this room, probably the best thing to do is to just go outside this door right here, and the box lunches are on the rack tray thing over here, and drinks and everything, and then come on right back in. For those of you who are in the Great Plains room, you can get your lunch. It's located in the bistro area, and also you can get your stuff and go back in there. I'm going to give everybody about 15 minutes to come on back in, and then we're going to start raffle drawings with our vendors and the prizes and everything we're giving for the check. Also, if you're not going to be here, but you plan to go to the next location for the after conference tour, that's located at the K-State Olathe Horticulture and Research Extension, and that will be from 1 till 2:30, and that's at 35230 West 135th Street. There are some little picture maps out here on the table right outside in case you need to get that, which gives some directions out there, but it doesn't have that address that I just gave you. I appreciate each and every one of you being here at CHEC. Hopefully you'll be here for a raffle drawing. If you're not, I want to thank each and every one of you for attending and for sharing and for networking and for being part of CHEC. CHEC next year is May the 22nd through the 23rd, 2019 at Pittsburgh State University. Also, if you could, on the back of your brochure, you'll see a link to a CHEC survey for 2018. Please make sure that you go and fill that out and give us some feedback on what we need to do, because we're going to continue to make CHEC successful and make it better for you each and every year. Thank each and every one of you for being here, and from Kansas State University and from my CIO, Gary. We appreciate you being here, and thank you for joining us. And please get a lunch, and hopefully we'll have you back.